Hi guys, I'm Chelsea. Let me just tell you, if this video records and gets shared on Tuesday, I will be praising God. This has been no easy feat between sick kids and technical issues and all the things. So I'm just going to share with you. I wrote this testimony all out and I'm just scratching it. So about me, I was raised in a Roman Catholic church, Roman Catholic schools, all those fun things. I was raised in a broken home. My parents had divorced when I was itty bitty, but my mom remarried when I was about 5. And that relationship was not a good or peaceful relationship. They fought a lot, and sometimes that fighting led to my mother being abused. Which really just distorted my view of the world. I kind of became a protector of my younger siblings, just trying to keep them away from it. I didn't want them to know that was going on in our home. And so I just really based my world on hiding things, making it look good on the outside. You know, I definitely grew up in church. And all those fun things, but home was not good. I think I developed this idea that because God was good and all these bad things were happening, that God was really far away in heaven. And so I needed to get there so that I could be in that good place. So I made decisions on that. I was a really good kid. I was a rule follower. I wholeheartedly participated in like all the religious sacraments that come along with Catholicism. But getting into like my early teenage years, I realized that I had sin in me that I really needed to confess and be forgiven for so that I could go to heaven. And so we would go to church and I would look back at the confessional booth to see if I could go and confess these sins, and week after week, the little light above the door was red, which meant there was no one there to confess to. And I just realized that I was never going to be forgiven for these things. And I thought even if I could get forgiveness today, I was just going to sin again, and it was just going to happen over and over, and I was going to be right back where I started. And so I decided that it was absolutely impossible to get to heaven. And so I was left with this world it kind of felt like hell a lot of the times, and heading to a place that wasn't any better, which built up a lot of resentment in me. My heart just filled with hate, especially in my home. It was the last place I wanted to be. So I really filled my time with school and friends, cheerleading, anything I could do to not be at home. And got into high school, and my junior year of high school, my mom came to me and said that her and my stepdad were getting divorced. And at that time, it had been a few years, really, a couple of years, before I had seen any really bad fighting. I thought things were getting better. So when she told me that, I was not totally surprised, but I was selfishly upset by the idea, because I had wanted to go away to college and really get away from it all. And the divorce put us in a financial situation that was no longer possible. So I just further removed myself from all things home life, and just really focused on me. I dropped out of cheerleading and started looking for work so that I could save up money. That summer after my junior year, I didn't have much luck finding a job at first, and I had a lot of time. So I just went and spent a lot of time with friends, and that's essentially how I ended up meeting my husband, Justin, who had just graduated high school. And by the end of the summer, I did find a job, and Justin and I had started dating. And pretty quickly, Justin became a source of refuge for me. He was my safe place away from home. We became very close. But by March of my senior year of high school, he broke the news to me that he was joining the Army and leaving in 10 days. So I just fell to pieces. I felt abandoned. And by the time his basic training graduation came up, I decided I couldn't go, and I broke up with him. So I got this job in social services at a nursing home, and my heart was just completely into that job. I had a great group of friends, and I was getting into community college. I had saved up, got my own apartment with my best friend, and I was living a good life. School, work, and out drinking with my friends. I enjoyed all of it. I loved my life. I loved where it was going. I had no plans to change it. But as God always does, He was not going to leave me there. So Justin was deployed, and he kind of called me out of the blue. And pretty quickly, he was back into my life and a really big part of it. And long story short, he came home from summer 2007 from that deployment. By that Christmas, we were engaged. In April, we were married. And the week after my 21st birthday in June, I was on a plane moving to Washington State. Escalated really quickly. But I was following the man that I loved, but not without reserve. I had a lot of anxiety. I had never wanted to leave home, and I brought that in. Oh my gosh. I'm telling you. So I brought that into our relationship. As all people do, Justin brought stuff into our relationship. We were two very broken people trying to figure out marriage with no foundation. So our sweet and safe relationship quickly turned into a bitter and hostile one pretty quickly. And then in 2009, we had our first child, and then Justin deployed when our baby was 10 days old. And those types of situations really make a weak relationship even weaker. We really started fighting a lot and had a lot of hostility towards each other. He was deployed for a year. Beginning of 2011, we moved to Colorado. In 2012, we became pregnant with our second baby. I lost that baby at about 7 weeks, which is a huge emotional event for me that Justin did not understand. He did not know. He didn't even know that he needed to be there for me. He just didn't get it. And however, from that loss, we became pregnant again right away. But that really didn't make things better. I was super worried about that baby, who is going to be 8 next month. But just a lot of anxiety through that pregnancy. And again, our relationship wasn't strong. We just had a lot of resentment building up and bitterness and just so much hate towards each other. And by the end of that pregnancy, while I was pregnant, Justin found out that the Army was going to send him into recruiting, which was the last thing he wanted to do. And so I thought that stress of recruiting was just going to be the end of us. Like, we were not going to make it through. No way. And then I found out that the Army was going to send Justin to recruit in Missouri, an hour and a half away from where we were from, our hometown. And I thought, in the back of my mind, while I didn't have any kind of concept of God, like a relationship with Him, I thought that maybe God was working things out to move me closer to home so I could leave my husband. We could get out of this terrible, terrible marriage that was completely unfixable. I mean, we tried counseling and all kinds of things. Nothing worked. So I was absolutely hopeless. It wasn't going to work. So I have my second child, and 9 days later we moved to Missouri. I was so depressed. And I started looking for outlets, again, just trying to leave home, just be away from home, out of that hostile environment. And I found this mom on Facebook inviting people to come to a mom's group, a lot like Moms and Munchkins. Just get together, do life together, love each other. And I was looking for anything that had nothing to do with my husband, and it wasn't like me to go somewhere where I didn't know people, but I messaged this mom and I said, give me the address, I'm going to come. So Wednesday comes and I go, plug the address into my GPS, and I get there and I realized it's at a church. I had no idea. Wasn't what I was expecting. So I go into the moms group and I really enjoyed it. A little nervous meeting new people, but I really enjoyed being there. And so pretty quickly it became a weekly thing. I was going to moms group. That was my people, my tribe. And I really loved it. Pretty shortly thereafter, that same mom, Kelly, who holds a special place in my heart, she invited me and my family to come to church. And we did. We came, and sermon after sermon, I started to realize that I didn't need a priest to be forgiven for my sins. God calls us to go directly to him, to be in relationship with him. And so that's what I did. I had a moment of pause and just prayed and asked God to forgive me, and I thanked him for dying for me. And I just knew that I wanted to live my life in a way that pleased him. I did not fully understand what I was really doing or that I was making a commitment necessarily. I knew that I was making a change in my life. Then I attended our church's membership class. Clayton Crossings has something similar. It's called Next Steps class, which is probably more appropriately named. It's your learning about the next step in your life, whatever that may be. But in the membership class that I attended, I had learned that the prayer I was praying and the life I was seeking was a total commitment to Christ. And I also learned about baptism being a public explanation for that. And I mean, at this membership class, I was about to jump out of my chair. I was 110% ready and jumping both feet in. I was committing myself to God. And so then in October of 2014, I was baptized at our church. And to say that my life has not been the same since would be an understatement. My focus went from running away from hostility and being afraid to being very focused on receiving God's love, and loving other people and growing in relationships with God and with the people around me. Honestly, my focus, I wasn't even really thinking about my marriage anymore. Outside of prayer, I would pray that God would help me through it. And I honestly thought that it looked like just staying in a miserable marriage and God teaching me how to live with that. But God did so much more. God literally changed me from the inside out. I was completely washed. Resentment and bitterness just washed away. And I forgave things that I never thought I'd be able to forgive. Not just in my marriage, just everywhere in my life. I realized my need to do that, but I wasn't able to do it on my own. And God just washed it away. As much as I tried, nothing happened outside of prayer. And I felt this renewed perception of life and the brokenness around me, and understanding that those hurt instances were people that needed love as much as I did. And so my life literally just completely changed. My perception changed. And I can't even explain to you the difference that happened, not just in myself, but in the relationships around me. My marriage became something more than I even dreamed of as a little girl or prayed for as a believer. I'm not the same person that my husband married, and my husband's not the same person that I married. Because we made a choice to commit to God so that we could commit to each other. But for me, there was no waiting. I made that step regardless of what my husband was going to do, because I knew that's what God called me to do. And in that, I became blessed. And God renewed me in my soul and helped me to see what he needed me to do. I really went from a place of loss and selfishness to just total hope and redemption. And, now we have 5 children. And I hope that when you see my family at church or at Moms and Munchkins, that you just see a picture of growth, of abounding love that only comes from God. And it all started with one mom at a sweet little mom's group, just like Moms and Munchkins. So when I'm reaching out to you and I'm inviting you to church, or I'm telling you about my God, it's coming from the heart, because I love you and I want you to know the love that God has for you, because he showed it to me. But that's my story, and I pray that you're blessed by it, and I pray that this video gets shared on Tuesday. But thank you for listening. I love you all.